everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes, our weekly podcast hosted by Natalie McFarland, me, and founder and president of McFarland Productions, and Scout Foster, our outreach marketing manager. In these episodes, you can expect deleted scenes, in-depth campaign reviews, project highlights, marketing concepts, book reviews, and a deep dive into the creative process at Off Your Rocker Films, and of course, invaluable lessons on mentorship, leadership, and the business of it all. We are so excited to be releasing our episodes every Sunday as your soft launch to Monday. Hey everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes, your soft launch to Monday. This is the last episode of 2025, which is wild because I think we saved the best for last, Tiah De Groff.
Aw, thank you. What an honor to be the last. Thanks.
Yeah, Tiah, you're incredible. Your background, obviously, Pendleton Roundup, past president now. Weird to say past president. I'm not ready to say past yet, although Pat's going to do a wonderful job. But Tiah, past president of Pendleton Roundup, forever and ever volunteer, incredible lady, just the Pendleton package. I feel like we can just wrap you up in that. But Pendleton Roundup is a special rodeo. There's really not another one out there like it. I frequently describe it to people who haven't been to Pendleton as the Disneyland rodeo. And it's a Mardi Gras. I like it. That's actually better, maybe. But it's just such a unique experience. And I've been wanting to bring somebody from Pendleton, especially you, here on the podcast because I think that there's some really unique things. But let's start with you. Tiah, tell us a little bit about you and your background, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I grew up here in Pendleton, so obviously my love for the Roundup comes from just being around it my whole life. My parents weren't from here. My mom was from Red Bluff, California, another great rodeo town. My dad from Joseph, Oregon, who they have the great Chief Joseph days. When they got married, they met in college. When they got married, they decided that they were going to make Pendleton their home. And needing to find a place to kind of get to know people and all of those things, they both decided to start volunteering for the rodeo. And so that's how I just grew up down at the Pendleton Roundup grounds. At, I guess it was 19 years old, I became a princess on our court. And then at 21, I was the queen. I left for college and went down to Oregon State and got myself a sports marketing degree.
Go Beavs.
Go Beavs, yes. I can't see all of my office, but there's a lot of beaver things in here. And from there, I went to work actually for a company called the Oregon Sports Authority that brings sports to the state of Oregon, like windsurfing competitions and snowboarding competitions, things of that nature. Met a great man named Peter Jacobson, and he got me involved in the golf industry. I come from like a rodeo football family. Golf was nowhere on my scope of things. In fact, on my first day of work,
A lot of similarities in tactics, between golf marketing and rodeo athlete marketing.
I will say that I was incredibly stressed. My first day of work, they gave me a book called Golf for Dummies. And that was my introduction to, what a scramble or a shamble or, I knew there were 18 holes and a little white ball and people got very frustrated with it. That was about the extent of my golf experience. But then
golf's a contact sport if I'm playing it. So
the hard part for me is like being quiet. So I don't do well with that. In fact, my first day of work, I played a round of golf and they said, like, do you drink beer better than you play golf? And I was like, absolutely I do.
Absolutely.
And that was my get to know you instead of a round of golf. But from there, I moved to the East Coast and continued working with Peter and his company and putting on PGA-style tournaments all over the East Coast. Eventually left there and started a sports marketing company in the greater Boston area, based in Rhode Island, actually. And
I didn't know that about you.
Yes, Rhode Island is one of the most magical places. If you ever get a chance, you have to go. And so we ran a lot of like the Big East Conference, the Hockey East Conference, did a lot of Ironmans and marathons. I got to learn a lot of sports. I didn't know anything about hockey. I didn't know anything about field hockey or lacrosse. And so I got to learn a lot about those sports and learning how to produce them. I've always kind of been in a sponsor relations realm, working with the sponsors. So eventually, I think I was there about 9 years, 9.5. My dad got diagnosed with cancer. My brother and his wife started having kids. And I thought, okay, it's time to get home. So I went to work for Wild Horse Resort and Casino here in Pendleton, doing all of their sports sponsorships, their community relations, and running their nonprofit foundation. Um, and went eventually on the Hall of Fame board for the Pendleton Roundup in Happy Canyon. Became their president, and then I was their president for a year, and they asked me to join the Roundup board with my sports marketing background. So I joined there, and shortly thereafter went to work for it was Great Beal Distributing at the time. It's Columbia Distributing now, so a local beer distributor with Coors and White Claw and a bunch of the things that you see at Rodeos. So I still get to have my fingers in all of that, and still working with sponsorships and the things that are really close to my heart. But when I went on the Roundup board, I became the sponsor director, and so that was kind of the good tie to lead me into the sports marketing realm over there.
Sure. They really knew how to use you as a resource there, didn't they?
We're pretty good at finding what your niche is and plugging you into those holes.
Yeah, I think that's something that's like very unique to Pendleton Roundup too, and I have lots of questions about your background, but unique to Roundup is that you guys put people on that board that like fit those positions. It's not just filling the positions, it's more about like how can we have the right people in these spots, and I think it's part of what makes Pendleton so much more of a business with the small town feel rather than a volunteer board with a small town feel, right? You know what I mean?
We do. But we also want to make sure you're not a one-hit wonder, as we always call them.
Yes.
Mostly because you're on that board for 2 4-year terms, so 8 years in total, and then you can go on to be president for another 2. But you get tired and burn out, and it gets a little. It's good to have that fresh blood. That's what we always like about our term limits, is that when you put fresh people in a position, they bring fresh ideas and can change things up a little bit. And so we want to make sure that if we're bringing somebody on the board, like I stayed in sponsors my whole 8 years, so I guess I was one hit wonder. But you have the ability. If I needed to, I could have gone over to publicity, or I could have done our beer and concessions, or somebody who can kind of plug a lot of holes for us, and then also somebody who could go on and become president and has some leadership.
Well, I read your bio, and I would not call you a one-hit wonder. And anything related to Pendleton, the Hall of Fame, Happy Canyon, you've basically been involved in all of it. But so at your day job, right, at your not Pendleton job, you guys do a lot of sponsorships of rodeos and other sports as well. Now, how does that tie back to your sports marketing background?
Well, it's a piece of what I do. I am administrative manager for Eastern Oregon, and so I do a lot of the finance and the marketing and a lot of the things that happen. But the part that I love the most is getting to work with the sports and the sponsorships. For me, it's been fun because it is kind of a creative outlet. You can step foot, and rodeo is very similar. We're all set up different. We all have different opportunities. So I like to go in and see, instead of just pouring beer, how can we really be a partner? What can we do that is like creative, either signage wise or out in the arena with a giveaway, or whatever it may be that helps us partner with the rodeo, so it's not just we're writing a check, but we're both enjoying it.
Makes it more of an experience for people too.
Yeah,
for sure.
One of the things I really loved about Roundup, if you've been, there's not advertising in the arena, so those sponsorships are very hospitality heavy. And it was a great challenge for me to have to think outside the box and why a sponsor would want to come join the Pendleton Roundup. And it was one of the things that I found really fulfilling about being on the board.
Talk about that a little bit. When you were working with sponsors, obviously Roundup is prestigious. It's hard not to want to be part of it anyway, right? But what were some of the things that sponsors maybe did that were unique from like an activation standpoint outside of that arena, since they couldn't throw banners up everywhere?
The majority of people use it actually as a hospitality venue. So a lot of times if you send a pitch deck to someone, I always said this is a starting point just to let you know what we have. But I'm not really great at like buy this package and make it fit for this. I want it to fit your company. So,
it needs to fit the company.
Exactly. Yeah. So you kind of send them a starting point. But I always said, just if you've never been to Pendleton, don't take my word for it. Come out, be my guest. I will get you tickets. I'll give you a behind the scenes tour. I want you to feel Roundup because we sit in this little hole. So as soon as you come down the freeway, there's like an energy about Pendleton during Roundup week, and you can't help but feel it. And so once people got here and they could see why we didn't have advertising in the arena, and they could see what made Pendleton unique, all of them wanted to come, and then they wanted to bring either, use it as sales incentives or client thank yous, or maybe they were trying to pitch somebody to partner with their company, and so it was like a trip that they could bring potential clients to. So we saw a lot of that. When we started Rodeo Way out in the park, we've seen some really creative booth space. We don't allow people to sell anything out there because we don't want to compete with the vendors that are out there, but they use it
Sure.
as a way to let people know what their company is. One that comes to mind is Bloomer Trailers. We don't have a Bloomer dealer in the greater Pendleton area. So they would bring up a trailer, and if you've never been to the NFR, never seen a Bloomer trailer, they're
They're
mind-blowingly.
impressive.
Um,
They're
so
impressive.
you get to see like what a living quarters horse trailer can look like besides just one that you're pulling your stock around with. And
Sure.
again, it was just a way for them to capture a new audience and let people see what they had. So we do a lot of those, and that was always my favorite part. Is I've never had somebody that I invited out here to see the Pendleton Roundup that walked away and thought like, no, that's not really for us. Every single one of them
Yeah.
joined. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you would feel that way. The first time, I can remember the first time I walked into Roundup, and I rodeo queened in the state of Oregon growing up, right? I had held 3 different titles. Those 3 titles were primarily NPRA driven. And so I always ended up at a different rodeo
Right.
Roundup weekend. So I never made it to Roundup until I was like 22,
Oh,
I
that's a
think
good
was the
thing.
first time I had made it to Roundup. And so and like, of course I knew everything about it, right? I'd read Writing Pretty and I'd seen all the photos, and I'm like already a Pendleton fan walking into Pendleton knowing it's going to be this magical experience. But I remember walking in there, and like, I was really like pretty young in the industry at the time, and didn't know a whole lot of people yet, and really just getting started with McFarland Productions. But I walked in there and I was like, I belong here, right? Like, I can walk into other local rodeos, like not to pick on anybody in particular, but like, St. Paul, Molalla, Sisters, I've worked with quite a few times now. But you walk in and you don't necessarily get this feeling of home. Like, it's energy, there's lots of fun, everybody loves every rodeo, right? But there's something different about walking through the gates at Pendleton that just feels a little bit like a sense of belonging,
We like to say we welcome
despite the
everybody home.
giant that it is.
Yeah, we welcome everybody home. Everybody is a part of it, and that's I think the jewel of Pendleton is that whether you are into rodeo or not, whether you're there for the carnival, whether you're there for a bachelorette party, whether you're there with your little kids, there is a place for you there, and we work really hard. I think our entire community, not just on the rodeo grounds, but the stores, the hotels, the gas
Hmm.
stations, everybody works really hard to make sure we put our best foot forward and show what Pendleton hospitality is. So when you get to town, you think, oh my gosh, this is where I belong. And I
Yeah.
love that. I just had a
Yeah.
conversation down at the NFR with a gentleman off the Salinas board, and he was blown away that we don't have a major city anywhere around us. We're 3 hours from Portland, 3 hours from Boise, about 4.5 from
Thank
Seattle.
goodness.
Yeah, there's no major market. So if you come to the Pendleton Roundup or come to Pendleton in general, you've made it a point, unless you're driving down
Hmm.
I-84 and need to pull off.
And you better plan
Yeah,
ahead too.
exactly. And he was mind blown that the whole community comes together. And he said the same thing. He was like, it was just like a sense of coming home. And then I went out and we spent a ton of money shopping at the native booths. And like, they don't have a native culture in Salinas, they have a Hispanic culture. And so, to
Hmm.
get to have that hands on experience with the Native Americans that from our tribe right here in Pendleton, and, having fry bread tacos and all he just said, I couldn't get over it. At every turn, every day, I thought I'd seen it all, and then something else came up, and yeah,
Impossible. You got to come
I
multiple
pulled up
years to
and
do
I
that.
did it. And I absolutely love that everybody says it feels like coming home. Big,
Yeah, I don't know what the geographic distance between Wild Horse Casino and uh, let's just go with the Roundup grounds,
mhm.
right? Because you're pretty much getting to the end of all
Yeah,
the celebration of
yeah,
everything, but that is a fairly large mile
yeah,
stretch, and you can't really get from one end to the other without like consistently seeing something Roundup related, right? During Roundup. So like all of downtown, all of Main Street, all of the neighborhood for between there and the Roundup grounds, all the booths that are around the Roundup grounds themselves. It's a wild experience, and like you mentioned like the whole community gets into it. I mean, absolutely. I think one of my favorite things is when like everything is like letter something,
Yeah.
right? So there's like letter Uber or
Yep.
whatever, right?
Yep.
And I just love every bit of that. And I think it speaks volumes to what Roundup has done to become a brand, right? It's not just a little local event. It's not just some little rodeo put on, by a bunch of volunteers. It's not just another thing the community does. It's ingrained in the
Yeah.
community. Can you talk some about the Pendleton brand? And I know obviously Pendleton whiskey and the Woolen Mills obviously have a large hand in this as well. But talk some about the Pendleton brand and why do you think it is about the Pendleton brand that you feel like people identify with so much?
Well, I think it started, as you mentioned, everything in town is letter something, letter Uber, letter Axe, letter something, letter rent, or Roundup City something. But our
Yes.
police officers, the city
Yes.
logo is the bucking horse. The high school mascot is the bucking horse. All the police cars, the police uniforms, the city vehicles, school vehicles, they all have the bucking horse on it. So it is really ingrained in everyone who is here. And kudos to them back in 19, I think it was actually 1915 that they finally decided to trademark the horse.
Yeah.
But that's such an iconic logo. I mean, it's very simple. Whether it's the full color logo or just a silhouette, you know instantly what it is. We tried
Mhm.
really hard to protect that. In fact, we have a whole team that does nothing but trademark, watch out
It does a great job of it.
to
Yeah.
make sure that we're protecting it and we're putting it on the right things. Um, Pendleton Woolen Mills, since the beginning of time, has been an incredible partner with us, and I think that adds to the Pendleton name. They are
Mhm.
an international company, and
Mhm.
they have a really great reputation in the world. In fact, I think Forbes at one point said one of the three things that you should own in the world is a Pendleton wool blanket. That's great. So it ties back to us. And then in 2023, Pendleton Whiskey came about. And our board thought long and hard about, if we're putting this on an alcohol, what does that look like? Is this something that we want to be a part of? I wish I could have been in the room for those conversations. So, I've
Right.
only heard stories, but um, then they merged with Hood River Distillers and Pendleton Whiskey. Ron Dodge had this idea that he had this great liquid and he wanted an iconic brand on it, and he couldn't think of anything more iconic in the state of Oregon than the bucking horse. And that's taken
Mhm.
us to a whole nother level. Tia Bledsoe and her team at Pendleton Whiskey have done a fantastic job at not only protecting our marks and making sure that they're using them responsibly, but getting them into markets. They're down in Texas. If you walk through the stockyards in Fort Worth, you can't not see Pendleton Whiskey. And so I think the three of us all work really well together to protect that brand and to make sure that it's getting out in the right manner. If somebody's using it illegally, we put a stop to it and really try to
Mhm.
protect those, but also try to get it out there as much as possible. Um, Sorry, I'm at work and have alarms.
You're fine.
And so, it's kudos to the boards that came before us that really tried to protect that brand and saw something in what we have. When I was speaking at the PRCA conference, I was looking out at all the different rodeo committees, and it was hard sometimes to tell what their logos were on their shirts. And that was one of the things that I think people should look at is like, how recognizable can your logo be? If it's got all these words and all these symbols and all the things, it's a lot harder for people to decipher what it is. If you were just a solid, I was sitting next to the girl from Corpus Christi, and they have a bucking fish with a cowboy on it.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know about
But
that.
it's also just like a standalone logo that you see it and you know it. You know the arrowhead from the Cheyenne Frontier Days. When you
Yes.
really think about it, and it goes back to branding, but I think that we've had people watching our marks for so long, and now it's just become this treasured icon that it's amazing to me to see what our retail store does. If you haven't seen it, or you can check out letterbuck.com. But
Oh
the
man.
things that we're able to put our marks on, and then again working with Pendleton Whiskey and the Pendleton Wool Mills, it's just really created something truly iconic. But I think that is fitting for the tradition and the rodeo that it represents too.
Yeah, that 22, 23, wherever we are now, year-long partnership with whiskey and like long-term partnerships with Woolen Mills, and quite frankly, long-term partnerships with the community. Um, that's a very unique to Pendleton sort of thing. And there's our other large rodeos that partner with, different companies and things like that. But the way that Pendleton does this collaborative branding approach in this very serious brand collaboration sort of way is like just super cool. Something that I always, when I'm speaking to especially entrepreneurs who don't necessarily have a whole lot of marketing experience, but they're trying to build a brand for themselves, I always say, like, you kind of know you've made it when somebody who isn't like your buddy or your family member or has worked for you wants to wear your logo on their
Yeah.
t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Like a Nike swoosh, if it wasn't Nike, would be kind of a silly little thing to wear on your
Right.
shirt, right? But because it's Nike, it means
Yep.
something, right? Same thing with the Roundup bucking horse. Same thing with just letter buck, right? Like you can't put letter buck on something and not know that that's either Roundup or
Yeah.
whiskey, one of the two, right?
Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah.
And I think that sense of belonging, that sense of being able to be a part of something is something that has been achieved over the 100 and whatever year we are
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
on Roundup. And
15.
it's it's really it's really a unique thing. And like you mentioned, the store, like I want to buy literally everything in that store. Do I need to only wear Pendleton Roundup stuff? Probably not.
Oh,
But
every
do I
time I
want to?
every
Absolutely.
time I walk in there, I'm like, I don't need another thing with the bucking horse on it, but this is so cute. It's terrible.
Love this. Yeah. I came home from NFR a little bit early this year, which is something new. I've never done that before. And so for the first time in 10 years, I've watched a round from my couch, and I put my Happy Cannon Roundup sweatpants
Yep.
on and my slippers on. I'm like, this is the best NFR outfit I could have ever planned.
It does. There's something about it that after being there live to come home and like snuggle up on your couch, it is like, this is the best outfit. The best.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
feel better.
And, like speaking of that recognition too, like your board is not just a volunteer board there for the one time a year. You guys spend so much time at NFR, at Sisters, at the Big Four, at all over the place. Your board travels and represents it more or maybe as much as, most rodeos send a rodeo queen somewhere, right? Like I've seen the Pendleton Roundup board in more places than I see most different rodeos queens. Why does Roundup spend so much time supporting other rodeos like that?
Well, I think it's twofold. Again, like if we're going to Sisters, that's a built-in rodeo market, right? So it's good advertising for
Sure.
us. But we're only as strong as the entire sport or the entire industry is, and we want to be there and be available to them if they need something. A lot of times, we were there when the bull jumped the fence at Sisters, and they handled it fantastic. They didn't need us by any
Hmm.
stretch. I'm not trying to say that, but it was nice that I could go talk to their president. And, like, if you need anything, we're here. Like, our publicity guy can say, here's what we would kind of write in a press release, and then they're there for us too. So this isn't a game of us against them. This is
Hmm.
very much a game of rising tides rise all boats, right? So like we
Hmm.
want everyone around us to be successful, and if we can support in any way, whether that's buying tickets or buying a beer in your beer garden or being there to help in case of a catastrophe or whatever that is, just picking up the phone when somebody else calls, we're only as good as the next guy. And so
Hmm.
there's always something that you can learn from another rodeo, whether you're a big rodeo or a small rodeo. I mean, we're 116 years old, and we meet all the time to strategize about what we can change, what we can do better. Did you see that they did this at such and such rodeo? Maybe that's a good idea. Is that going to work here? You, there's always something that you can learn. So, again, a lot of it is because it's a built-in audience for us to advertise to, but a lot of it is we just want to be there to support them and be good community partners. We travel to, I guess, 20-ish different rodeos, and not just rodeos. We go to the Portland Rose Festival, the Spokane Lilac Festival. We go to all kinds of events. Our court goes to far more than that. I think they have 300 and some appearances throughout the year and travel I don't know, 17,000 miles. And that's just locally. And then you factor in if they're going to Cheyenne, or last year we went to Deadwood,
Hmm.
whatever that may be. And they're a great advertising opportunity for us too, but they don't necessarily know the nuts and bolts of, we'll get somewhere and somebody will be like, hey, with your guys' long run and your barrier, how do you do blah, 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 blah. And so, it's nice to be able to have those opportunities to kind of network and one-on-one talk to people. And then, but my very favorite part, selfishly, is when you wear that brand somewhere, everyone wants to stop you and say like, oh my gosh, this is on my bucket list. I really want to come to Pendleton. Where should I stay? Where should I sit? What should I do? Or they'll tell you, this one time I came with my grandpa and we sat in the stands and I did that. Everybody has
Yeah.
a story about Pendleton and they want to stop and tell you what that story is. And to me, those are super meaningful. Like, I just love it. It fills my cup. But also, we learn a lot. I mean, I was talking to, again, the gentleman from Salinas, and he was like, I went to the Happy Canyon show, loved it, but I was like so sad when the cavalry came in and there was the war between the Native Americans and the cavalry. And then all of a sudden, there was no like rest for my emotions. This boomtown came, and the ladies of the evening came out on the stagecoach, and I was like in shock. You need to figure out how to like gradually put people in the, and it was so funny. But
I love that you guys pop in and out of emotion like that. It's like, yeah, we're going to recognize it. This is a very solemn thing. Also, here's crazy.
yeah,
Here's
if you
some
don't know, Happy
letterbuck
Canyon
for
was
you.
the story of the Oregon Trail. Essentially, there's a Native American portion at the beginning, and then a gold boomtown comes. But of course, there's a clash in the middle. So anyway, but I think you can learn things from people when they tell you what their favorite part of the roundup is, or their least favorite part, or what the experience that they had. And I've been here so long. This will be my 40th year volunteering for the Pendleton Roundup, that I gloss things over. I take them for granted. I forget that, our bucking shoots are different, or that you can go to the cowboy breakfast every morning, or that you can go get Indian fry bread at the Native American village. Like, those are just things I take for granted because I know them, right? And so if it kind of renews and refreshes your love for what's going on and reminds you of the things that happen outside of the arena. I mean, for the last 10 years, I couldn't tell you what happens on Main Street in Pendleton. In fact, this year I was speaking at a dinner and went down to Hamley's on Wednesday night of Roundup, and it was the first time I'd been downtown in a very long time, and I was like blown away by
Because you
all
weren't busy or anything,
all the things that happened. And so, I love that when we travel and we have the ability to talk to people one on one, and get, whether it be our ticket holders or another committee, just to kind of hear their feedback.
Yeah. Something that at least I noticed more of at this last roundup in 2025, and maybe I just noticed it this year and it's been happening for a very long time, but I know Oregon State Alumni Association has always been present, right? But they felt extra present this year. Was there something different, or was that just something that I had noticed
No,
this year?
you know what? I'm old. I graduated from Oregon State quite a few years ago, but even then, they took a full page ad out in the Oregonian, the Portland newspaper, to congratulate myself and another princess on being on the Roundup Court, and did, a hats off to you thing. And it had cowboy hats versus like graduation caps.
Cool.
And so they've been very supportive for a really long time. We have a strong, being an ag community, a very strong tie back to Oregon State. But every Thursday they have an alumni dinner at Hamley's, and they're always in the parade. Benny's been here. The president comes nearly every year. Being a Beav, obviously that's where my heart is. But U of O also has a strong presence here, and so does Washington State. So it's fun to.
Ah, go
I
Beavs.
Beavs, but it is fun to see that
No, it is
the
good. It's
other
really
the
good.
other universities see that this is a draw for their alumni, and they want to be here to engage with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, that alone speaks volumes that an alumni association wants to be involved with the rodeo, right? They probably never showed up at Umpqua Valley Roundup, and I'm picking on them because they no longer exist, so I can. But like Umpqua Valley Roundup was probably not drawing the alumni association. I think it speaks volumes to the value that Pendleton Roundup brings to the industry, to the lifestyle, and to the state of Oregon in general, that the alumni associations are involved. Okay, I'd love to sit and talk about Pendleton all day, but I really, really want to get to this. You are a multi-generational person who is been a volunteer on this board. Talk about your dad.
Oh gosh, make a girl cry here. My dad was an incredible human. Like I said, he grew up in Joseph, Oregon, the Chief Joseph Days. His grandfather was past president of the Chief Joseph Days. He rodeoed for, at the time it was OIT or OTI, I can't remember, whatever, first, different than what it is now.
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
in the Klamath Falls, and high school rodeoed as well. And so rodeo was really a passion of his, and I was incredibly a daddy's little girl. I followed him everywhere he went. He taught at Blue Mountain for most of my life and was involved with the Blue Mountain rodeo team, and that got me involved. I sat on their board as well. But just a really incredible guy. He went on the Happy Canyon board of directors when I was 6, and that got my brother and I involved. My brother went on to be a Happy Canyon director. Ryan is much more, he's incredibly smart, my older brother, and I'm not as into the horses as I was. And so I went a little more to the roundup side. Still volunteer over at Happy Canyon, but that was something that my parents instilled in both of us. Like I said, my mom is from Red Bluff. Her family is really involved in the Red Bluff Wholesale and the Red Bluff Roundup. My grandfather, my uncle, many of our cousins, and my whole mom's whole generation, they were all directors down there. And so she also saw the value of it and getting involved in your community. And I think a lot of the time she probably wanted my brother and I out of the house, so she would send us to the roundup grounds with my dad to help at work parties.
Wear yourself out.
A little bit. But that was, almost every Saturday we would be down at the roundup grounds with my dad, as he was a really handy guy, and he taught mechanics at Blue Mountain, so he could fix about anything. And if it was a fence that needed fixed down there, or machinery or whatever it was. And so to keep us busy, they'd have us pick rock or paint something, or they'd come up with kids' jobs that we could do. And so he really instilled volunteering and giving back in both my brother and I. And my brother has 3 boys, and all of them are in Happy Canyon, so we have the 3rd generation coming up.
Sweet. Anybody ever be the one that was in the exploding porta potty in Happy Canyon?
My brother, yes, he was my.
Nice.
I'm really proud. I was the town madam, and my brother was the town drunk. Yep.
I love it. What a combo.
I
know. So, we've gotten to interview you for various clients over the years. We did a Wrangler Network piece on the Pendleton Roundup Queen and Court quite a few years ago. I don't even remember what year that was. That was quite a while ago. And then this, I guess it was year before, so 2024, we did the Year of the Cowgirl. Just to kind of re-celebrate what that is, Tiah, you are the first woman president at the Pendleton Roundup. You've now completed your 2 years as doing that. What was it like, and what do you think that legacy, what do you think that opened up for the Pendleton Roundup for you to be the first woman president?
Well, first of all, thank you. The Year of the Cowgirl was something I didn't expect. Tia Bledsoe and her team said, hey, we're going to have a camera follow you, and okay. And, I put a microphone in front of me, and I'll talk forever. And so I thought, oh, yeah, great. Then, a roundup piece on whatever they're doing. I had no idea that I was truly the focal point of that. They surprised me with it at the NFR. You all surprised me with it at the NFR. And such an incredible honor. I hope that it is taught other little girls to, follow their dreams and kind of all the cliches. Like, don't take no for an answer. And, if you set your mind to something, go do it. And I guess I never looked at it as like I'm breaking the ceiling or breaking paths for anybody else. It was just a passion of mine that I really wanted to follow. I knew I could do it. I grew up with all boys, so I've never been intimidated to walk into a room full of men. Being in the sports industry, I was 21 years old, and this 6-foot-tall blonde walks into a boardroom to go talk to somebody about sponsorships. I'm sure they were like, girl, what is happening? But I always had the confidence to walk in there and do it. And if I can give that to somebody else, that makes me the happiest person in the world. I love the mentorship piece that has gotten to come with this, whether it be other women on other rodeo boards, whether it be our court that I'm sitting down with. The other day, one of my friends just asked me if I would go to lunch with his high school age daughter and talk to her a little bit about her career path and what she wants to do. And she was having some confidence issues, and so I wanted to chat with her about that. And those are the things that I take away from the Pendleton Roundup. You know, the awards and the accolades and the nice things people say obviously are so kind, and I love to hear every single one of them. I'm so thankful for the opportunity, but I really think I was given this opportunity so that I can show other people a way. And sometimes I don't think that you get to recognize your gifts, and you forget what your gifts are. And if one of mine can be helping someone else along the way, and I hope I can help some gentlemen too. I don't want to leave that just at women, but if I can help guide anybody else, then boy, what an honor for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you are such a role model, to everybody really. I always have such admiration for mostly you running around like a chicken with your head cut off and succeeding in every possible way during Roundup week, especially. I don't even know how you pull it off. You're incredible. But I think you you have a really special gift for making people feel welcome, for presenting yourself professionally, for projecting that level of confidence, for making friendships within the industry. If you were to give anybody a piece of advice about how, either about confidence or success or something like that, what would you give them?
God only made one of you, and he gave you what he gave you for a reason. So use that to your advantage. When you walk into a room, you're the only Natalie McFarland that is ever going to walk into that room. The things that you can do with a camera and your voice and your marketing are beyond what I could ever accomplish. You should see the pictures on my phone. They're not even great. And so what you can capture absolutely blows my mind. And every single person has those gifts. It's just up to you to find the ones that fulfill you and the ones that you want to chase. I could say that I want to be a country singer. I'm probably not going to be successful at it because the dogs are going to howl.
I'm really good at about midnight at a karaoke
Yeah,
bar,
in the car. I'm really good at those things. And everybody has that special gift. And once you look at what yours is, I don't always think that you know them either. I mean, a lot of times it's a passion. Like the first time you picked up a camera, you probably weren't great with it. The first time
I was not.
I was not great at it, but I loved it. And there was something in me that it ignited me. And so when you feel that, don't stuff that down. When you feel that intuition, listen to it and follow that drive, because your path is not going to be everybody else's path. It doesn't matter if they understand it. If it's something you love, go for it. I mean, the amount of people that say, like, how much time you give to Roundup and you do that for free? Why would you do that? I don't know. I want to give back. It fills me. I love it. If I'm not going to do it, who is? And look at what it does for our community. And, you have to find your own why, and it doesn't really matter if it makes sense to anyone else. I've been incredibly blessed that my bosses understand it. I think they're going to be really excited for me to be back in the office full time. But you really have to chase what's yours and carve your own path. But just the belief in yourself, and you truly can do anything you set your mind to.
Yeah, that was great. What's next for Tiah? Obviously, you're going to continue volunteering.
Oh yeah.
Anything big on your horizon other than that?
No, I've kind of purposely left it that way. I wanted to savor this moment, and I've been on the board for 10 years. I've been a volunteer for 40, and it is a second full-time job plus some.
It is.
I think I spent probably more time doing Roundup things than I did my paying job throughout the 8 or 10 years that I was on the board. And so I kind of wanted to take a deep breath and reevaluate who I am and what I want to do. I love my job here at Columbia Distributing, so I'll be here and I'll be volunteering for Roundup, but I think God has a way of putting things in your path, and I'm sure other things are coming for me, and I can't wait to see what those are, but I'm also not really rushing it. I wanted to get
a break well earned. I'll tell you that.
In the holidays, and I'll have a retirement party in January, and I really want to take all of that in and kind of let this chapter close before I start a next one. So I don't know, if you have an opportunity, throw it my way. We'll see what's next.
I always need a Tiah. I need my Tiah around. Tiah De Groff.
Anytime.
Well, okay, one more philosophical question for you. If you were talking to any business owner, maybe not necessarily in the Western industry, what do you think is the number one takeaway that somebody in business should think about when they look at Pendleton Roundup? What do you think is the number one lesson from Roundup?
Stay true to who you are. I think every business has an identity, whether it's a candy shop on a main street in a small town or if it's a major corporation. You have to know exactly who you are and follow that path and not get deterred from it. A little like the confidence we were talking about. I think
Mm-hmm.
Pendleton does that very, very well, and I hope other businesses take away from that. I kind of had that conversation with some rodeos down in Las Vegas when I had a chance to meet with them. Is like, you're not going to paint your chutes the same color ours are because that's something very Pendleton.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to put in chuck wagon races because Cheyenne does it or Calgary does
Mm-hmm.
it. That's what Calgary does, and that's awesome for
Mm-hmm.
them. Find what makes you you. Pendleton is a little tiny cowboy town. Walla Walla has a great wine industry. Most of
Mm-hmm.
this has Wallowa Lake and the beauty that surrounds
And so much
it.
art.
So find what makes you uniquely you and stick to that, and I think that makes you successful both as a person and as a business.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So, for this year, we've used the theme of the podcast to be our soft launch to Monday. So basically what we're doing is kind of playing on that like soft launch terminology you would as a marketer, like when you're about to launch something, but you didn't really push out into the public. But we're playing off of that in a way that's like, how do you prep for a week? Right. So it can be anything from, I like to go through my email and clear out all the craziness and try to like get my head about myself too. I think Scout said that hers is I wash my hair on Sundays, you know? So it can be literally anything. But Tia, what is your soft launch to Monday?
I am a sticky note list person, and so there's sticky notes everywhere. And so every like Sunday night, or sometimes Friday before I leave the office, I kind of gather them all up, make sure that I still need them. Some go in the garbage, some get rewritten. I have lists, I cross lists off, I rewrite lists so that they look pretty as they start my Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very, it's almost like pregnant people when they nest around them. I need like my space around me tidy. And so Sunday is kind of like get your lists trued up and like, new important things are going to rise to the top of that list. And there's some things that have carried over through the last like 3 weeks that you finally need to get checked off your list. I kind of put them in a priority order, and I really get everything around me fresh and clean. So when Monday comes, and there's always something in this industry. It never fails. At 7:30 on Monday morning, my phone rings with whatever catastrophe is happening that I can hit the ground running.
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting like the Bruce Almighty scene where he when he goes prayer sticky notes and the whole the whole room. He's like, maybe not prayer sticky
I can't
notes.
remember what company it is right now, but they have like a to-do list, and it's like a guy in a sticky note outfit that walks around and like leaves sticky notes everywhere. That is me. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. I love
I think
it.
I keep those sticky note people in business.
Well, Tia, I have so much admiration for you. You did an incredible job on the board. You're going to continue to do an incredible job volunteering, and I just feel so fortunate to have gotten to know you over the years and get to call you friend. That's just an honor of my life to be able to do that, and working with good people like you. That's really what it's all about for me. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And hopefully you'll get to enjoy your 2026 of slightly less crazy schedules.
I look forward to the new challenge. I don't have kids or a husband, so I'm going to need something. So hopefully those new
Yeah,
challenges come my way. I don't want too much downtime.
you'll find a
Thank
way.
you so much for having me. I feel the same way about having you as a friend. You're incredibly talented, and I love to surround myself with good people, and you're at the top of the list. So thank you very much, and I'll
Awesome.
just sign off with a letter buck.
I was going to say, we're going to be remiss not to end this one with a letter buck,
That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tia.
Thank you.